If you're new to Unreal Engine and you want to learn materials, then this video is for you. You will learn how to use materials. That is one of the most used features in Unreal Engine. We will start to an introduction to what is physically based rendering to understand the concepts behind it. And then we will learn with the very basics in the editor so that you can get familiar with it. Learning materials can be overwhelming, so we will learn which are the most important nodes to use in your daily operations. And we will also create our first master material, and we will learn new concepts such as instances, functions, and finally we will learn other types of materials that can be useful to make interesting surfaces like sci-fi holograms. Oh, and by the way, make sure you check our store. We have a lot of cool stuff, like a free course to learn blueprints, modeling a castle in Unreal Engine, and of course a lot of Unreal Marketplace packages made with a lot of effort. So let's continue. So this will be our introduction for materials for beginners. And to make it real, I have a real beginner with me. It's Ram. Hi, Ram.
Ooh.
So Ram is a programmer, very good with blueprints, but knows very little about materials. So he was telling me that he wants to increase his knowledge about materials. And if he can learn, I guess everyone can learn.
Yeah, and I'll be asking questions and try to compare some of these to blueprints. Maybe that could help me.
Yeah. All right. So if any question, just let me know. Let's start from the very beginning, which is what is a material? So a material, it's like a painting you apply to a surface inside Unreal. So typically, you will apply materials to any kind of 3D model. By default, there is no such thing as a model without a material inside the editor. Everything has a material. So materials in Unreal Engine 5 or Unreal Engine 4 are using a mode that is called physically based render, which is basically a way to tell Unreal how to render these materials. So in order to explain a little bit better, the materials have reflection and metalness, all right? Basically roughness, which indicates the reflection. So as you can see here, I have materials that are from 0 roughness to metal 0. And as I continue move, you will see that it gets more rough and you start losing the reflection. Okay, so basically the material is composed of these three things. Basically is the color, which in this case is gray. And the second thing is the roughness, and if it's metal or not. And of course, there is a normal map too, but we're not checking that now. And here you can see the same material with the same color, but this time you have the metal property on. So as I continue to increase the roughness, you will have a different type of metal. All right, and you can continue. It's from 0 to 1, but I'm kind of lazy to continue the rest of them. So this is the combinations that material have for a physically based render. However, when you combine them with other textures, instead of this is just a singular value, like just from 0 to 1, this one, it's a texture that is composed of grayscale values. So what you have here is not only the properties, which is rough and everything, but also some color. And by the way, if you want to check the roughness, just go to lit and then go to buffer and then go to roughness. And here you can see like how rough these are. So basically, the darker it is, the more reflective your material will be, and the whiter it is, then the less reflective it will be. So materials have different kinds of combinations, and it's very important to understand this because it can get really complex, such as this model here. It's composed of several materials, and each one of those have different properties. So once you understand these concepts, you will be able to just create any material you want.
Hey, and I noticed that you only had metal values, well, the metalness, only in 1 or 0. Eh, can you put like values in between, or only 1 and 0s?
So that's a good question that a lot of people ask. Technically, you could try to change the metalness to have something like 0.5 or 0.6. However, this system is created so that the metal should only be white if it's metal, so that you have the most accurate result. However, this is not rocket science, this is just a guideline. If you want, of course, the most realistic results, make sure you have your metal to 1. However, there are some cases that you would like to change the metal to something like 0.5 or something, if like you're creating some alien material and you want to have something a little bit like mixed, you can try to do that. And also sometimes, like when the metal is not really reflective, then it would lose the metalness value. And some of the materials have this, but usually the main rule is to only have the metalness to 1. Okay, so now that we know what is a material, let's take a look at how we can create one. So let's go to the content browser, and I will just right click and select material. Then I will put a name. Usually you put the convention of M from material and underscore, and this will be our test material. Okay. So now that we have this, let's double click on it. And what you have here is basically a node editor, just like everything in Unreal. And the only thing you see is this big square with a lot of properties. These properties are the outputs of the material. So if you want to change the final color, it should go here. And if you want to change the metal, it goes here, and so on with different properties such as the specular, the roughness, the emissive is another common one, the normal maps, and the ambient occlusion. So you see that in this material, some parts are gray. And the reason is this material is made of certain properties. So the way you change this is by going to the material and go to the blend mode. And here you can see different blend modes. For example, you can try the mask material, which is the same, but this time it will have an opacity mask to have some transparency. This can be useful when you're making foliage or something like that. Another one is a translucent, where it will be like transparent material. And another one is the additive, which is very similar actually. I'll go back to the PEG, which is the most common one. And here you also have different types of presets or shading modes. For example, you can have the hair, and you will see that some things change here. For example, you don't have the normal map now. Now you have a tangent. And you have a backlit output and some other outputs that are different. If I click on cloth, you will see that I have different properties here, such as the fuse color and the cloth data. And I also have for eye, the iris mask, iris distance. So you can see you have different properties depending on the material you will create. So by default lit is the most used one because it's basically the normal material, the basic PBR material, which is an opaque surface such as this one that use PBR properties. And of course, you can always create something like an eye or cloth or hair shader just by using this. The thing is, you will need to do a lot of hacks to get the shading working correctly. So it's better to use the preset you want before, so that it's let's say it's better to know which kind of material you're creating before, so you can start with some presets and you can have a much accurate result. So here to the left, of course, you have the viewport, and if I left click, you will see the material. I'm rotating it. I can also change the material to use a different mesh, this one, or maybe a plane like this, or maybe a cube. I can also select my own mesh. For example, if I go here to my starter content, go to static mesh, and let's say we want to put this rock, we can just click here and you will have the rock here. Very useful if you're like kind of shading the maps, and you want to take a look at a specific asset, how it looks like. However, in my experience, it's a little bit annoying because it will save the reference in this material. And when you're not using it anymore, because you just want to preview it, then it will be a little bit annoying to delete this asset if you want to in the future. But the option is there if you want to use it. So the next things are the stats. You have the stats. So basically, the complex your material is, the more complex, the more instructions it will have, and it will be heavier. Of course, you have the platform stats, which is to look how it will look like with the other platforms. This is especially useful when you're working in mobile games, because the shaders are very limited. So it's very useful to see this kind of instructions here. Okay. Here, we're not gonna take a look at those because we're not really going to use them. We're gonna use them like little by little as we continue to create our material. But this is the basic of the material editor. And if you want to move around, just right click and you will pan the camera, or you can use the middle mouse to zoom out and zoom in, and left click to drag several nodes if you want. Okay.
Right. Really similar to the blueprint
Yep.
editor also, I believe. So a question before going forward. Those shading modes or modes of the material, I believe that as you get more experience, you will know exactly which one do you want, if you want a translucent one or a default one, right? It's not really necessary that I go to maybe that documentation and look around exactly what each one of those.
It's very useful to know what these blend modes do. It is basically it's a combination of experience and reading the documentation. For 99% of the cases, you will want a opaque material. But if you're making, for example, your texture has an alpha and you want to use it for transparency, then you can use one of these two. Or if you are creating water, maybe you want to use the translucent one to have a more realistic result with the water. Or if you are maybe you're having a mask material for the foliage, or an additive one if you want to make some sci-fi stuff. But it's really just a few cases where you need to change it. But for sure, in the documentation inside Unreal, you will be able to find more information about those. But for the most part, it will be the opaque material.
Great.
All right, so now that we are more familiar with the material editor, let's take a look at how we can create nodes and which are the most common nodes we will use. The first thing I want to show you is the palette tab. If you click on this, you will see that you have different palettes and basically different nodes. So for example, if I click on this one and I drag it here, you will have a function here. So if I can delete this by pressing the delete key, so you will see that it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're first starting out, you don't know which node you should use. It's a lot of things actually. But what you can see is that the most common nodes have a shortcut. For example, if we go up, you have some constants, such as the constant 1, which is only one value, constant 2 vector, and you can do the same for each one of those. Okay. So in case you're wondering, what is this constants? Materials are basically texture manipulation, but the texture is nothing more than a grayscale value from 0 to 1. So for example, if I go to my textures here and maybe I want to open this one, you will see that I have different values for the red channel here, the green channel, and the blue channel. So basically, the black dots mean 0, or the darker it is, the closer to 0 is the value, and the whiter it is, the closer to 1 is the value. Of course, an absolute 0 will give you completely black, and an absolute value of 1 will give you a complete white, which is something you want to avoid a little bit when working with materials. Nothing is perfectly white and nothing is perfectly dark. But in order to understand this better, one value here will be constant 1. This will be a combination of constant 1 and 2, such as this one. And then go to the next one. I will have a vector 3. And here with the alpha, if I had one, you will see that I have 4 values: red, green, and blue, and the alpha. So this is what my constants are red, red and green, red, green, and blue, red, green, and blue, and alpha. So let's put this here so that we know these are important. Let's comment this. You can type C to comment, and we can put this like constant variables. Okay. Now, these ones are the most important ones, but let's take a look what we can do with those. So if we grab one of those, you can see that instead of going here to the palette, once you know that these ones are very common to use, you can just type 3 to create a constant 3, or 2, or 1, or 4, and you will have your nodes very easily. So once you get more experience, you will know which one to use. This one is fairly straightforward, from 1 to 4. Okay, so let's do a bunch of operations to see what we can do with this material. Let me put 3 to put some color, and you will see that if I click here, you will have the material properties, but if I click here, you will have the nodes properties. Each node will have different properties, so make sure you check them out because it can be really useful. Some of them are quite important, and some of them will have some inputs we will see later. So this color here can be changed. For example, I can put some pink here, And the reason I'm not seeing this in my material is because I haven't connected to the base color. So there are two ways to connect this. You can either drag the base color to the output here, and you will see the color. And there is another way. If you want to disconnect this, just click here, press Alt, and click, and this will disconnect the node. There is another way to connect this, and it's right-click, and you will see you can connect to any of these output nodes. So I can put connect to base color. Okay.
Oh, didn't know about that.
Yeah, it also took me a lot of years to find that one out. I didn't know about that after many years of working with materials. And it's extremely useful if you have a lot of nodes and yours is like this here, and you want to connect, and it's too much effort. So if you already know, you just right click, connect to specular maybe, and there you go. Alt click to disconnect, and yeah, it's very it's very useful. So let's do some operations. Let's try to learn more about the multiply node. Change this color a little bit, something nicer. Just this green. Okay. So here you can also right click, and you will see that you have your nodes here, and you can also type. So one of the most useful nodes is the multiply. So the multiply will take one value, and it will multiply it by a scalar parameter or any other vector. So what I will do is to drag this one here. And you notice that in my properties, the constant A is missing. I mean, I cannot type it anymore. It's because I'm already using an input node here. And then I have the constant B, which I can put any value. So by default, like, you're a good programmer, so you know that everything that you multiply by 1 equals the same.
Right.
So nothing will happen if I multiply by 1. Let me try to press 1, put a constant here, and we'll drag it here. So just like if you multiply something by 1, nothing happens. If you multiply something by 0, everything will turn 0. It doesn't matter what you have here. So the multiply value allows you to basically darker or brighten some areas if you multiply by a constant. For example, I want this to be a little bit darker. I can multiply by 0.5 or by 0.2. And I will have a darker color. Or I might as well multiply by 2 to duplicate the value. And if I put something crazy like 50, you will see that I have something white here. That's basically everything. It's turning white here. And if you want to take a look at the values, here you can actually do the math. Like if you multiply by 3, you will have a value of 1.2. So this will mean that you have a white value, right? So this is exactly what is happening here, but it's multiplying the 3 of those. So another important note that we have, let me disconnect this. Let's delete this one, or just put it here. And if you want to duplicate nodes, just Control W, and you will be able to duplicate some nodes. Let's try to change the color here to something like this, blue. And instead of multiply, I will put add. So the add, it's a little bit different. If I is an additive operation. So let me connect this to the base color. Okay. And as expected, the add will just add on top of this. Right now is 0. That's why nothing changes. But you can also add by -1. See that everything will turn dark because all these values, if you add -1 here, it will be negative. So this is why this turned dark. So basically the add allows you to brighten things out a little bit if you want 0.5. And if you put 1, of course it will be white. And if you put -0.2, it will be a little bit darker. Essentially what you're doing is changing this value here until it becomes dark. Okay, and you're basically moving the value here. Okay.
Right, and all those values are between 0 and 1.
Yes, all these values are between 0 and 1. You can check here, the value is controlled by this bar. 0 dark, and a value of 1 will completely bright. And this is the saturation. A value of 1 will be fully saturated. And if I decrease here, you will see here that this goes to the white area. It's because it's losing the color. It's less saturated. So it's very useful to know that these two can be modified. Okay. Let's try to move this one here, and let's delete those with Alt. And by the way, I don't know if I did put it, but I put the add node just by adding here. But you also can press A and you will add it. So it's very common to know that shortcuts once you know them. Oops,
It's really good to know the shortcuts.
Yeah. All right.
Speeds up everything.
All right, so let's continue with some important notes. Okay, so now that we know to do some operations, let's take a look at one of the most important nodes, that is the lerp mode. So in order to use the lerp mode, we can either type here linear interpolate, or we can type L and we will get it, or you can find it here like linear interpolate. All right. So the lerp node is extremely useful. What it says is we have an alpha value and you have A and B. The alpha is a value between 0 and 1. 1, of course, meaning it's white, and 0 meaning it's black. So if it's 0 or black, you will use the bottom one, which is the A. And if it's white or 1, you will use the B. So let's try to combine these two colors. Let me duplicate this by pressing Ctrl W, and I will put, let's say, orange. So I will connect these two. The orange will go to A, and the blue one will come to B. And by the way, if you want to take a look how this looks like without connecting, which is very useful if you want to test some stuff, you don't want to mess around with the main outputs, you can right click and start previewing, and this will be the output that it will be previewing here. If you want to stop previewing, just right click and click on stop previewing, and what you can do is go to the base color. And you can see that this one turned pink. And the reason is we're blending these two colors based on 0.5. So what it says is basically give me a little bit of orange here and a little bit of blue and mix them, basically put the average. So the average of course is something around here because we're using this color and this color, the average will be around here. So this will give us that pink look. So how do you have control over this? Basically, you can have a constant here. Delete this one, type 1, get the constant, and click drag this one here. So if you see 0 will give me this value, and blue, in order to get the blue, I just need to put 1 here. And of course, as I decrease this one, this will be a little bit closer to blue, like 0.87. And as if I decrease, it will be more pink and more reddish until I go closer to this one, the orange one. Okay. Now, materials are more complex than use 0 and 1. We saw that the values of 0 and 1 can be done by using a mask. So this is what we're gonna do. And we're gonna grab this texture and we're gonna put it here. So let's try to find a nice texture. For example, it could be this one actually. Or maybe this one. Take a look at how it looks like. Not really this one. Let's try to look for another one. Okay, let's just grab this one. So if you drag this, you can drag the texture here and you can put it here. Another way is, of course, type T for texture sample, and automatically it will grab the texture you already click on the content browser. If you don't have one, it will be empty. And another one is to put texture here, and you will have the texture sample. Okay. So what I want to do is to grab the red channel, and I will put it on the alpha. And in order to see this better, I'm going to put a cube here. And instead of putting the 1, I'm going to put a red one here. And now you will see that the blue one will appear in the white areas, which are basically this part here. And the orange one will be appearing in the black ones. But we don't have everything completely black. That's why nothing looks orange. So let's fix this. So what I want to do is to multiply this. So let's grab this node here, multiply, by pressing M. And I'm going to multiply this red one and hold 1 to put one value here and just delete one, be a little bit organized. And I will put it here and I will connect this. So by default, it will be 0, of course. If I put 1, it's the same value. And if I put 5 or 50, you will see that everything turns whiter. So what I want to do is put a clamp node, okay? Because if I right click and start previewing, let's put like 50, you will see that everything turns super white, and I don't really want that. So what I will do is to put here, I put the clamp node. So what the clamp node will do is to grab from 0. If the value is less than 0, it will stay. The minimum will be 0. And if the value is higher than 1, then you will clamp it to 1. Nothing will be higher than 1, and nothing will be lower than 0. So we can stay within range and we don't break the material. So if I put something like 500, you will see that here is super white, but if I start previewing this node, you will see that is just white. And I can stop previewing, check how it looks like, and you will see that I have my blue color here. Now, I really don't want to use the multiply because it will brighten everything. I'm multiplying all the values. I can either brighten or make it darker. So there is a way we can, make the whiter look whiter and the darker be darker. And that is the power node. So if I right click and click power, type power, you have the power node here. And of course, I can also type P. Oh, well, the power is another one. So let's just type power. Maybe there is some shortcut for the power. Yeah, it's E. E is for power. P is for panner. We'll not see that yet. So what I will do is to press 1 and then put it here and connect this two and put it here. So let's take a look at the mask here. By default, nothing has happened, but as you can see, the power node, like you are good with math, you know what it does is basically it would exponentially change the values of this. So if I put 2, you will see that my texture looks darker compared as if it's like 1. Everything is less contrast, more contrast, and I can put something like 5, something like 10. This will increase the contrast, and what you will have is basically darker values and brighter values. So the higher the number here, the less grayscale values you will have, which is somewhat useful if you want to create a mask. So let's stop previewing this node. And what you will have here is basically the yellow one will be for the dark values, I mean the orange one, and the blue one will be for the bright values, which are the things that are happening here. Remember, we can start previewing node. You will see that the white one is here. And stop previewing. And of course, you can change the constant to multiply something like 50. But actually, you need to put a clamp here in order to work. But anyway, this is the most simple node to blend between two different colors. You can put materials here instead of colors, but in this case we're using colors. So we're using the texture here to use the mask instead of a constant. So far so good.
Yes.
All right. So let's put the lerp node here for our most common blending operations, and the power node here. So move this one down a little bit, and then click C and put blending operation. All right. Okay, so now that we know the most basic nodes to create materials, let's take a look at how we can create our own material. So let's delete this for now. We don't need this anymore. And here, let's grab this here, so it doesn't bother. So let's try to create a simple master material for our surfaces. We have some textures here from Megascans which we can use. So we can go to surface, and maybe I can try this one. Or maybe this, much better. So what I can do is to drag these textures here and I can put it here. So you will see that instead of only one color, I have my base color here. Okay. Another thing, I will grab this too. You can grab more than one. And let me close this one. And the normal map is this one. This is a normal map. And we will see more about the normal maps soon. Okay. So, and this one, it's a mask. So the mask for this one stands for R for ambient occlusion, green for roughness, and blue for displacement. We're using a Unreal Engine 5, so we're not really using displacement. It's not allowed, but we don't really need it for now. So the red one will come to the ambient occlusion, and this will give us some shadows, pre-calculated ones, very cheap. And the green one will go to the roughness one. And here, the normal map will go here. Okay, so now that we have our material, let's take a look at what we can do with it. And there is a very important note that is the texture coordinate. You can either press U to get it, or you can type texture coordinate. It's the same, okay? And basically what this will do is to give you coordinates in X and Y, which is the tile here. So if I drag this here, and I can drag this tree here, nothing will happen. But let me put the cube here so we can see better. If I put the tiling like 5 by 5, you will see that my texture will be repeated 5 times here. In X 5 times and in Y 5 times. Or I can do it non-uniformly. I can type like 2 in X, and this will tile just 2 in X and 5 and Y. So if we want to change this too, the only thing we need to know is that we can multiply it. For example, I can press M to multiply and hold Ctrl to move this one and put it here. Okay, so I can drag my texture coordinates, and by default it's 1, but I can press 1 here and drag this one, and then right click, or let's not convert the parameter yet, let's just see. 0, of course, there is no tiling. 1 is the original one, 2 multiplied by 2, 4, and 5. You can continue to do that. Okay, so what we could do, now that we have our texture coordinate, let's take a look at what we can do with some of these textures. For example, I could change the brightness of this texture here. And by doing that, I will put add by pressing A and drag the RGB, which is basically all these 3 channels, put it here, and then press 1 and put a constant here. So what I can do is put it to the base color, and here I can change it to 0.05 if I want a little bit whiter. Notice that everything will turn bright. Or I can make it darker by -0.3 maybe. So I have a darker texture. But the problem with this, if I put 5 here, and even if I put like 500, you cannot see it's breaking because Unreal Engine 5 does this validation now. Unreal Engine 4 didn't. And we need to make sure before putting it into the base color that we put a clamp here so that our values are from 0 to 1, just to check. Unreal Engine 5 does this automatically, apparently. If you're using Unreal Engine 4, make sure you have the clamp before the base color, otherwise it will break your values if you are using some operations here. So let's take a look at what we can do with this one too. We can also multiply, basically strengthen the values of our original colors. So I will put 1 here, drag another one, and let's multiply by 1, so it can be the default value. If I do this, I will put like 3. You will see everything turns brighter, but it's not necessarily the same. And put like 15, and everything. It does have a different look. Okay. So let's apply this, and let's continue to work on our future master material. Okay, so now that I have this one here, I want to also change the roughness of my texture. And there are a couple of ways I can do that. I can either multiply the roughness and I can plug it in here, or I can put a lerp node. And I will put a lerp because we already did this operation here. So let's take a look at how it will look like. So press L to get a linear interpolate. And in my alpha, I will put this value here. Okay, it goes from 0 to 1. So let's start previewing this node. And you will see that most of these things are like darker. I mean, this one is very bright. It's a very rough surface, so there is not much to interpolate. But what I can do is to put 2 constants here. And I can invert the values if I want. And I can put like 0.7, the darkest value, and the brightest value instead of being 0. And I can also go negative like 0.3, make it darker, or minus 0.1. You want to make it very reflective. And by the way, let's take a look at how it looks like. So you can see it's more reflective. Let's start previewing this node. So I can put a value of 0, and you will have something like this, more reflective, or a value of 0.3. It will be less reflective, or 0.1, something like this. And this gives you a lot of control of how you want your surfaces to look like. For example, you can put like 0.4 here. And this will be a little bit shinier than what it should be. So if I put this one here, you will see it's very rough. And if I put this one here, it's less rough. So I can put something like 0.8. So this gives you a lot of control of how you want your surface to look like. The ambient occlusion, we don't really touch it. And the normal map is a very special one. Let's take a look at one of these normal maps here. For example, this one. Let's change this to default to see if we can take a look at how this looks like. So the normal map is a combination of 3 colors. And what it does is simulates the light to give a little bit more detail to the surface. So you can have like micro detail. This light is composed of 3 different channels. It's called the red one. And if you see, the light comes from the right to the left here, like this. You can see you have the shadow here, and here you have the light. And it's very evident to see it on these bricks. That's why I put the brick as an example. And if you want to check the green one, you will see that the light comes from the top to the bottom. So you can see you have like this part is bright and this part is dark. So a combination of these two will give you something like this. The blue one, on the other hand, is not really useful. The blue one, if the red one goes from this direction and the green one comes from this direction, then the blue one goes into Z axis, which you don't really see it. So what we can do here, and let's go back here to the normal map. So as you can see, the normal map doesn't use the blue channel in Unreal Engine 5. So what we can do here is learn some other useful nodes. We want to increase the intensity of this normal, but we can only do it if we grab these nodes, the red one and the green one. So what we will do is to grab an append node. So if I right click, I can put append vector. There is another way, and let me see if I can find it, is the vector to float, or float, breakout, float, 3 components. That can also work if you want to get this tree and then grab these two here, or grab one of this. Sometimes it's useful. So the append node will basically create a new vector. So it's like I grab the red one and the green one, and I can right click, start previewing node, and you will see I have my red and green channel. So what I can do now is multiply this by pressing M, and I will put a constant here, and I will right click, convert to parameter, and I will call it normal intensity. And you know what? Let's not create parameters first. Let's do that later. Let's put the constant here, put 1. And if you see here, if I multiply this by 5 or 50, 500, you get a lot of very rough surface. So let's start previewing this one. Like 50, you will see that it's getting very rough here. Put 1, it's less intense. Stop previewing this node. So what I need to do is to mix it with this one. So I will do another append node, append vector. I will just put it here, and I will put the blue one here. And basically what I have is my normal map here. I can plug this here. And if I want to check my surface, how it looks like, let me put something like this and make this one bigger. I can increase the value of this something like 10. And you will see it's very noisy. Especially from distance, you will see if I put 1, it doesn't have much noise. And I can even go lower, like 0.2. And if I put 0, it will be like I have no normal map. If I put 5, you will see I have a lot more details. Okay. So now that we have this, let's do one more thing. I want the ability to change the padding of this texture. So what I will do is to press add. Okay, and add here, basically, I can add this first, and then I can break the float actually to use 2 vectors. But you know what? I changed my mind. Let's keep it simple for now. And what I will do is put the append node into our blending operations, append vector, and this will be, I don't know, useful node, something like that.
Yeah, it's a way to manipulate channels, break them, and
Yep.
make them together.
And also like float, breakout, float. 3 components. That can be useful too. Okay. Or break out load 2 components. It's the same. So for now, if I wanted to do the add or do multiply, and I want to change this one individually, I can use this one. But let's not do that now. Okay. What I want to do is to create a material instance. So this is what we will do next. So now that I have my material, let's try to apply it in the world. I will go to my content browser. Actually, if you don't know where this is Control B and you will find it. And my material, I will drag it and I will put it here. And you will see that my material is working. So now let's introduce you to the concepts of material instance. Because if I want to change something, for example, I want to change the brightness here like 0.5 and then go to the normal map and increase the intensity and hit apply. Then I need to go back here, compile again, and it just takes a lot of time. So let's go back to our default values here. And what I will do is to create a material instance. So I will, in order to do that, let's go to our material and let's click apply first. And what I will do is go here and then right click and then create a material instance, and I will call it mi bug test. Okay, so this is my material instance. Save everything, and what I will do is to drag this one here. Okay, so now if I double click this, you will see that I have my material here, and I don't have any property to work with. So what we will do is to convert these scalar parameters into something like a parameter. So let's right click and then convert to parameter. This will be my albedo add, and right click, convert to parameter, albedo multiply. Okay, this will be my roughness minimum value, and this will be my roughness maximum value. And this will be my normal intensity. Okay. The last one we need to put is this one. This will be my tiling. Okay, click apply. And now you will see that I have my values here. I can change the tiling on real time. I can change the roughness, for example, 0.2 or 1. I can change the normal intensity, something very strong or something very light. I can change the albedo, multiply it, and change the add, darkening, like this. And I will see the results in real time. If I drag this and I want to check how it changed, I can just change on real time how it looks like. I can go back to my original values if I click on this one, like this. And I can also change the tiling here, and you will see how it changed from real time. So this is a very simple way to create a simple material instance. And let's say this is our master material here. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah, it seems like it's like if you were using blueprints, it's like a child blueprint where you can change all the parameters, but in the material instance, could I add more operations, or that wouldn't be the use case for this?
You cannot add more operations, but what you can do is to create, well, you can create a material instance of a material instance. So let's say you like these values, uh, like multiply and the intensity, and it's a little bit brighter. As you say, you like this one. Then what you can do is to right click and create a material instance. And if you go here, you will see that the default values are these ones. So if you were to change this one, like for example this, then you will overwrite the parent values. And of course, you can see the parent here. The parent is this one. And if you click on this one, the parent is this one. So there is no really, in the material instance, you cannot do any operations. But it's very useful, like if you want to have like a base material instance, and then you have instance of this instance to save some time when you want to create some childs.
Right. Well, being able to preview the material changes instantly really makes up for anything. So yeah, it's great to have.
Now, let's say you want to create another material and you want to add kind of like the same nodes, but you want to change something. Then you can copy this and paste it in another material, and then you can put it there. But the best way to work with materials is with material functions, so you don't do the same work over and over again. So what we can do is to create a function for this normal map, for example, in case you don't want to do the same operation over and over again, unless you're practicing and you want to remember these principles. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter if you use it already. There's no need to create it again. So what I will do is to create a material function is just right click, go to material, and then go to material function. And I will call it mf normal intensity. And you can have material functions for everything, like my master material function, or my normal map function, or things like that. So the material function looks a little bit similar, but it has an output result. This output result will be the output of your function. So in order to have something here, we need to create our material first. We have some inputs. So here you can see the description that the material function has. For example, change the normal map intensity. That's the description. You can also expose this to library if you want to have it here. For example, I can just go here and then normal intensity. This will be my function that I just create. It will be in my library. Okay, or you can just drag this one, put it here. Both are fine. I highly recommend you to create your own functions so that you don't do repeated work over and over. So what I will do is to basically create this one. So I will just copy and paste. But there are some things we need to change. Let me put this one here. So the first thing is that I need a function input, because my function doesn't really know that I'm going to use this texture. I can use other texture, and I don't have the power to change that here. So what I will do is to delete this, and I can put a input node. By default, it's a vector tree, which is what we want. So what I will do and I have my append node here. I will create my breakout float 3 components, and this will be the same operation we had before. The red one goes here, the green one goes here, and the blue one goes here. Now, if you really want to know if your function is working or not, you can try to find one of these textures here, for example this one, and put it here for preview. And here you can see, but just remember that this is only for preview modes. Okay, and also if you want to export this function to another project, make sure you don't have any dependency. So for me, I like to put it here, and of course delete it if I'm not using it anymore, but I don't have any dependencies with another texture. So now that we have this works exactly like it should be. Let's just try to change some things here. First, we're gonna change the input node. This will be my normal texture. And another thing is this normal intensity. We need to create an input for this. So let's go here and create a function input. And this time will be a scalar. So what I can do is delete this one and put it here. And I can also put a preview node here. I can put a scalar here by pressing 1 and put it here. Let's put 1 for now. And what I can do is change this use preview value as default. Let's just check how it looks like without this check. So let's click apply. And let's grab our normal intensity node. Normal intensity. You will see that I don't have any name for this. I have my texture, but I don't have any input for this. So I need to change the name for intensity value. Like this, apply. And here you will see I have my inputs. If I want to change the order of this, I can change the input. Sort priority, can put 1 here. And because this one is 0, this one will be on top. 0, 1, 2, and 3 if you want to organize it a little bit better. Okay? Now, this one is a mandatory function. Like if I just put this one here, you will get an error. And the error says that I need to put some inputs here. Now, I can put my normal map. I can put it here, my normal texture. And I can just delete this one. I don't need it anymore. But I still have the problem that I have an intensity value. And I really don't want this to be like mandatory. What I will do is go to my functions here. And here I can put in my intensity value, use preview value as default. So if I click apply, you will see that this one is a little bit gray and I don't have the error anymore. And that means this is optional. But of course, we really want to put the value here, so we'll put it. So now that I have this, I have my normal intensity. I can just go back to here and I can try it again. And it works just as before. I can change the intensity and my material is a little bit more organized. If I wanted, I could just create the functions for this one and here I can have another material function, or if I wanted, I can create a material function for create a master material, which is what Quixel does. If I go to my Megascans presets, I can change the default material and go here, and you will see that I have a material function. I can have the inputs, and inside the function I have my operations here, just like we did before. And I can also use this one if I want it. But this is how you create material functions. So, you got any question, Ram?
Yeah, well, just an observation. I saw that you copy and pasted the the instructions to the function, right? To the material function, and you copy and paste it with a parameter. Uh, then, and well, you already delete the parameter inside the material function. Is there any way to just make that as an input, or that those parameters inside the material function doesn't work as one that doesn't know much about materials expect?
So, my experience with material functions is that it can be a little bit messy if I convert this to a parameter and I click here. You can see I have the parameter here, which is not what I want. So you either have two options. You put the parameters here, and here, like, you don't put them, right? And of course, it will work. However, if you don't put them here, then you will have some problems in the future that maybe the name you're putting in your parameter is the same as this one. So for example, I can put normal intensity, and you will see it's the same one, likely. But if you have, it's normally the same parameter. If you find it here, it will overwrite. But it just for organization purposes, I rather just convert this to a constant, just so I don't have duplicated parameters here, just in case, because of the naming convention, sometimes it's not the same, and you will, let's say, normal intensity with capital I, and normal intensity with the small I, and you will have two of them and you will get confused. So normally I tend to put the constant here. I don't want to put parameters inside, but of course, if you want to put them, that's also fine. You can save some time. If you put the parameters there, then you don't need to put them here anymore. Just make sure you put the preview value as default. Otherwise, you will be forced to create a parameter here. Okay, so now let's take a look at another kind of important node I personally use a lot, and that is the slope node. So let's move this one here. And what I want to do is to create a slope to put some snow on top or some moss, something like that. So I will just right click and click slope, and it will work to have it here to my, let's just call it texture masking. Okay. So I don't need to put anything here. If I start previewing the node, you will see that the slope is always on the top. And here is like, it will check the vertex angle. And if it's looking at the top, it will add a mask. So what I will do is to create a small blending so I can have a snow on top. So I will put the lerp node. The alpha will be my slope mask. The bottom one will be my previous material. And here I will put, I will hold V to create a parameter. And I will create a slope color. Let's just put it simple for now. And I will put it like maybe this color. Okay, or okay, let's just put it white. And let's just put it here and put it on the base color. And with that, we're finished. So now we have some snow on top of this one. So if you see here, you have the snow here, and it's having a smooth transition here. Of course, we can create more parameters here, but we're not gonna do that yet. So if I want to duplicate this one, if I want to put moss on top, I will need to create another material instance. Let's save this and let's see, duplicate mi rock moss, for example. And here I will put this one here. And what I will do is to go here to the slope, and I will put the green one here. Something like this. Now, there is a problem with this approach, is that if I have a lot of objects and I want to create a new material, I need to apply, and let's say you have a big map and you want to apply snow to everyone. And you also have another map and you want to apply moss to everything. Then you will need to create a material instance for each one of those. And it's a little bit annoying. So what I will do is to create a material parameter collection. So let's go here to material, go to materials, and then go to material parameter collection. This is extremely useful when you want to program too, because this kind of parameter doesn't really depend on the material instance. You can have different instances in your model, but you can have one collection. And for example, you want to apply blood for your character, you can use a parameter collection to apply blood to your character and other things inside the map. This is very useful for blueprints actually. So let's take a look. I can just call it material parameter collection, and I will put it like, I don't know, surfaces. Just for testing. If I double click on this, you will see that I have scalar parameters and vector parameters. So let's take a look here. In my vector parameter, I can have a color. For example, slope color, and that can be my name. Okay, and by default, it can be white, for example. And we're using the color, but we can actually use anything. So here, instead of using my, let's go to here, my slope color here, we're gonna delete this, and we're gonna put a material parameter. Actually, let's just grab this one, the parameter, and we're gonna put it here. Here you will have your parameter collection, and what you can do is to select what you want to use. For example, I can use the slope color, and I will put it here. Okay, and this doesn't work because this is using a float 4. So what I will do is to maybe put a break. Should be this one. Actually convert, not convert. Let's say we can use blah blah. We can just use the break. Not this one. Like float components, and the float 4 will go here, and let's append vector, the red one and the green one, and duplicate this one and put it here, and the append one will put the blue one, and we will put it here. So that way we don't use the float 4, we just have a vector 3. So if we apply this one, you will see that I have my slope mask. Now everything is white, even if we're using different material instance. But what I can do now is to go to my material parameter collection and change the color of the slope. And even though there are different material instances, they will update all of them at the same time. So this is extremely useful if you're making a huge map and you want to be consistent and want to have like snow on all the meshes. Or for example, you're having a character and you want to add snow on top. So you can just add the function in your character and you will control it by this one. So now that we know more about the opaque materials, one thing I want to show before wrapping up the introduction to materials, something that is very useful for UIs and widgets and some other utilities, it's another blending mode. So I will create a new material and I will call it sci-fi A, maybe. And I will double click on this. And here I will put additive. My blend mode, I will put additive, and you will see that I cannot use the EVR outputs, such as the metallic, the roughness, the normal map. I cannot really use it. So what I create is a small mask here, and I will show you some useful notes that we can use too by using this one. So the red one looks like this, the green one looks like this, and the blue one looks like this. So what I will do is to grab this mask and put it here. And if you want to create something like very sci-fi or something like that, then you will need to make use of the opacity output. So what I will do is to grab the red one and put it here. And maybe we can put the base color like this. Okay, so now you have something. Now remember when I show you in the materials, you need to put a clamp to have the energy conservation. No values greater than 1 will be 1 and values lower than 0 will be 0. Here we don't really have this. So what I can do is to multiply, press M to multiply, and grab this, and I will put a color. So I will put V, create a parameter, and I will put my R color. So this one for my red channel. We'll just put it red for now. I plug it in. And what I can do actually is to multiply this one again. And this time I can use the alpha for this. I can also put a constant, but it won't make the difference. So alpha is 1, but if I want to change the intensity, I can put like 50 or 500. Now, the base color has a clamp. And the reason I'm not seeing this shiny is because it's on the base color. So instead of using the base color, I'm gonna put the emissive one. And now this is very useful for VFX. Like if you want to have some shiny stuff, by default is 1. But if you want to increase the intensity, you can do it this way. Okay. There are a couple of notes that I want to show you that are very useful for this kind of thing. First one is the panner node. So let's take a look at what it does. If I click here and then type panner, you will see that I can put it in my coordinates here. And what I can do is to change the panner. For example, like 0.2 on X, and it will move on X, and 0.1 on Y, something like this. And it will always move like this. Okay, so this is one of the useful ones. I will copy here and then text I will put it texture, coordinates, nodes, something like this. Okay. So here you can change the coordinate, of course. And another one is the time. There is another useful node that is the sign. And the sign node, you can put it here if you want. Actually, not this one. You can put it like this. And what you will have is basically another operation that you will change the coordinates. Instead of using this one, I can put it here on the speed. And the sign lacks an input, so I will create another one that is the timer, the time node. I will put it here. And you will see that it's getting a little bit crazy, so I will reduce the periods to 0.1, 0.01, 0.05. And I can also change the time here, like I can multiply the time. Let me put this one here. And I can press 1 to change the timer. I can multiply by 0.2 if I want. Or 1, 2, or 0.5. So basically it's just to add more variation here. So I can also change the time here. If I wanted to change the multiply here with the time, you can multiply by 2. And it should make it a little bit faster. Let's see. So it's a little bit faster. It takes a little bit of time to compile, but it works. So if you want the panner to move faster, then you can use this one. Okay. And the good thing about this is that you can change the mask to use another one, such as this one. Or you can use any one of those. Okay. So the time I will put it here. And the panner where we have the sine and the cosine, and both work pretty well. They just start at different time. Okay. So another thing I want to show, it's the rotator. So the rotator, instead of using the panner, this one will rotate the texture in the center of 0.1 and 0.5 and 0.5. Now you see that my texture is going off limits, and this is why I have an alpha with a circle here. This circle will be my mask, so I make sure I don't go off limits. So what I can do is to multiply this and put my circle here, and I put the opacity. So now, actually still doesn't work. So we can put the mask instead of wrap mode, we can put clamp, and this should do it. So now our texture won't tile, which is what we want. Okay, and if we do that, then we don't really need the mask anymore. Okay, so another thing I want to show, it's the bump offset. So if I type bump offset, this one is very useful. I can put the coordinate here. For example, I can put this one, and I can put the coordinate here. And I need a height, so I will put a constant value of, I don't know, 0.5. Okay, And now what I will do is to duplicate this one. Actually, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to copy, paste, and this will be my green color. Okay, and maybe the blue one. And I can use the blue one here. Okay, so if I start previewing node, it's the same, but this time I'm using the blue one. So what I will do is to use the bump offset. So if I copy this, actually I already did. What I want to do is to merge these two. And additive modes, because we are using the additive, it's very simple to use. We just need to use add. So we will add this one with this one, for the mask, and we will put it here. And we will add the color here with this one. And it's changing the color because I'm putting another parameter. So let's go back, original color here. Okay, and let's add our emissive color. And you will see that it's kind of in the same position, but the good thing about the bump offset is like I can put something like 5, and it will give the impression that this is actually on top. Or I can put something like 15. You will see that it's behind, or minus 15. So you can have like cyberpunk designs like on top of each other, where you can put your stuff here. And of course, if I don't want to rotate this one, I can just use the panel node, and I can just put it here. And here I will put like 0 point. And it really doesn't move because I put the wrap mode. Put warp here. And here you have your texture on top of each other. You can change this 15. So it kind of gives the illusion that is like forward instead of in the same plane. So it's like a Z offset. So the bump offset is actually very useful too. And this is it for additive materials. Basically, you can multiply and add them and put them into the emissive, and you can add the opacity. So you can have different masks and keep adding to have some kind of sci-fi design. And you can play with the bump offset to check which one goes forward and which one goes in the back. So this concludes our production for beginners to use materials since they are real. So we saw a lot of stuff, since PBR materials to what are the most useful nodes, how to navigate the windows, and how to create our master material instance, how to use material parameter collections, and also some other special modes for materials such as the additive one to create different types of materials that are not physically base accurate. Any questions so far?
No, it has been pretty clear. I've learned lot of tricks, a lot of shortcuts, and a lot of a lot of about of how the materials actually work, how the manipulation also works.
All right. This concludes our tutorial on materials. Thanks a lot for watching, and remember that if you want to learn more, we have more videos for people like you on our website. Make sure you check our tutorial on how to make an entire castle in Unreal Engine 5, and let us know in the comments what kind of video you would like to watch, and we may make a video about it.